Hi, everyone. Welcome to A Way of God's Remembrance. This is presented by Awake to Love. I'm Lee here with Cindy. We are the volunteer Zoom hosts and so grateful that you are here. You have arrived at a very special gathering. This is our 35th consecutive gathering, and with next Wednesday being Christmas Day, the week after being New Year's Day, this will be our completion gathering of the year. For this gathering, Michael Hayes, co-founder of Awake to Love, is with us and joined by Alicia Das, fellow co-founder of Awake to Love, and to my knowledge, the world's foremost authority on the angelic kingdom. For us, more wisdom, more sharing, and more remembrance for the highest good. As a way of introduction, I will read Michael's words to bring clarity to the focus and format of this gathering. This is a gathering for those seeking greater awareness of their true nature. There are many paths and approaches to higher consciousness and to greater awakening to who we truly are. The essence, the truth of all these paths is more about remembering who we are and have always been, rather than becoming something different or more than we have seen ourselves to be. A way of God's remembrance goes to the heart, to the intention of all the paths. This is what we will explore together. Michael and Alicia will share thoughts and awarenesses that come forward as relevant and purposeful for our time together, followed by questions and answers related to what they share about. We will begin with an invocation of light to help support us all to be in collective alignment. After the light invocation, we will play a recording to lead us in Anai Hu chanting. For the light invocation here at our 35th gathering, my privilege to welcome co-host Cindy Harris.
Thank you. Father, Mother God, thank you for this opportunity to bring us all forward together one more time. We call in the mystical traveler, Jesus the Christ, and any other high light master that is here to be of divine service, and that will help us to be of service for you. Thank you for this opportunity, and we open our hearts and come before you. Baruch Bashem.
Hello, everyone. Merry Christmas. Happy everything. So let's just receive of the silence of the Christ. as you're ready, allow yourself to receive God's intention for you for this gathering. What would the Lord have you intend for this gathering? And now be aware, receive from the Lord one word of what you will leave in 2024. What is it you would like to leave behind in 2024? One or maybe two words. Receive it now from Spirit. In a deep breath and breathe in the love that is present in this moment, the healing of Spirit. Deep breath in, breathe in love, and as you exhale, let those one or two words that you'd like to leave behind in 2024, just let them go out on the out breath to be transmuted back into the nothingness. Let them go from you. Just observe as the traveler releases that old paradigm from you. And now receive from the Christ what it is the Christ would give unto you in this Christ Mass season, in this time of rebirth. What is it that is waiting to be born within you? What Christ's child shall come anew? What shall that look like? Just allow yourself to see it, to hear it, to know it, to receive it. And with any birth, there's a bit of labor. So now it's time to acknowledge yourself for what the price you have paid, for what you have endured. Give birth to this beautiful and eternal gift of the Christ. Just acknowledge yourself briefly for the labor involved, for the sacrifices, for all the difficult choices. Just in the silence, acknowledge yourself. Deep breath in, breathe in that gratitude. And now, what is that star of Bethlehem which you follow close and you follow near within you? What does it sound like? look like? Breathe in that star of Bethlehem. What is that that calls you into the Christ? Receive it now. That is the light in the darkness that shall always guide you home. In every moment, if but you would turn to face it in all its brilliance, if but you would turn to face your Christ itself in all its brilliance. And lastly, receive that beatific message from on high about the birthing of the Christ within you this season. Receive that message. It may be simple, yea, though I am the Christ. Or I am born anew this moment. Receive that simple statement of affirmation of your Christ itself. This then is who you are, who you have always been. Sometimes you forgot it, and now you remember. I am born anew each moment, the Christ. This then is who I am. Take a deep breath, breathe in that truth. And as you exhale as one, joining heart to heart with all those present, those to watch the archive, that love, that Christed love just amplifies all through you, increasing the Christine of the planet. Mary, Mary, Christ Mass. Amen.
Welcome to A Way of God's Remembrance. And I'm going to close my eyes because I'm a little distracted here. So we'll see. Well, I think if we want anything to come through.
Halo says hello and Merry Christmas. Yep, that's his hello. I'm going to put him in his bed now. And just Halo has a big injury. So I would ask that you please send him the light. That's why he's in here with us. Please send the light to his. He has 2 torn ACLs. So everybody's sending you light, Halo.
That was a beautiful Christ blessing. And the Christ is really a central part of blessings that do come to this planet. I kind of look at it as, in some ways, that Christ helps link us or connect us to the blessings that already are. That God is entirely present and God is entirely available for those that are present and available for God. And a lot of our process is learning to do that, or learning to stop doing what we do instead, which is become distracted, to be seduced by the allure of the world and the storyline of individuation that we take on when we take a physical body. And that creates an extraordinarily complicated process that we will then gradually unwind as much as we can until we come to that realization that of ourselves, we cannot do this. We give over to that higher power we call God, and then God unwinds the complication. And that freedom from complication is that oneness with spirit. The Christ then becomes the uncomplicator, the freer of the complication and the distortion and the trauma and the drama of the creation and the miscreation done within the creation. Spirit of love, everlasting, that the Christ links us to, is available now for each of us, and each of us is welcomed into a greater experience and a greater expression of that love everlasting, that eternal love, that truth of love that is the divine promise fulfilled in each and every one of us. The Word of God was made flesh. From the Gospel of John in reference to the coming of Jesus, the coming of the Anointed One. We can see Jesus as the vessel that contained that blessing, in a sense, the cup of Christ. If we see him as the cup, Christ is the elixir of God, we understand it more completely. And then when he says, these things I do, you too shall do, and even greater, he's really saying we shall also be cups of the divine essence. What a wonderful destiny and blessing that is for us and for each of us. So we welcome the Spirit to bless us. We welcome in particular that power of the divine word, that power of that word that calls us back into the remembrance of the Spirit that always is. That word that was extended into our reality in the flesh as a summoning back to the truth of the eternal state. That is in the oneness and the togetherness with all things binded or unbinded as they seem to be. For in that eternal state, there's only loving. And that loving crosses over all boundaries. It interconnects those who are lost and those who are found. It interconnects that which we think of as the highest and that which we think of as the lowest. It interconnects all reality, for it is the bridge simultaneously to and from the divine and all manifestations of its purpose. That purpose we've all come to learn, to experience, and eventually to express. This day that is upon us, we open to receive the sanctity of your presence, Lord, as it lives and moves through us. And we sacrifice all those places in the consciousness that would be in betrayal of this, that is the holy promise. And it is done. Amen. Now we're going to turn this back over to our dear friend Lee, and he's going to give us some guidelines to set us forth for the rest of the evening. And once we'll be doing some sharing, and it's so wonderful to have you all with us. And hallelujah.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Alicia. I have guidelines for questions. Questions are to be about a way of God's remembrance and what Michael and Alicia have shared. To ask a question, please raise your Zoom hand. You can find that by hovering near the bottom of the Zoom window. Click on the React button. A pop-up appears. Choose Raise Hand. Please also turn on your video for full participation. If you are on a low bandwidth connection and are unable to do that, so be it. Most important, and since so many of us have had the blessing of working with Michael over so many years for assistance in clearing so many things, this is not that. Please do not ask questions of a personal nature and do not ask for assistance in clearing. Questions are to be for your benefit, the benefit of those of us gathered, and those who will participate via the archives. We ask that you look to the integrity of your intentions before asking a question of Michael and Alicia. And thank you for your cooperation. For those here who are new, for those who will be new via the archives, and as a reminder to us all, Michael is available via personal sessions for assistance in clearing, for personal questions, and as a way shower into greater remembrance. To access his online schedule, please visit awaketolove.com, and Cindy will place a link to that into the chat. Finally, here is the legal consent. By raising your hand and asking questions of Michael and Alicia, you are giving full consent to Awake to Love to make the audio and video of this gathering, including your sharing, available as online archives for anyone to access. Please do not raise your hand and do not share unless you are in full agreement. Thank you for your cooperation. Okay, Michael and Alicia, ready for you to unmute, and there are 3 hands lurking.
There, I guess I guess it works better when you speak into the mic. We could speak at it, not so much. Okay, there's the 3 hands. And if you have been thinking about doing a sharing, but you're a little nervous, first of all, we're very gentle. At least I am. I can't speak for him. And this may be the last gathering of this sort we do for a while. We may change things up in January. We don't know. We're following the spirit. So if you've been thinking about it, I would encourage you to raise your hand, especially if you have not shared with either or both of us. And now that I have entertained them while you pick somebody, have you picked somebody? So we'll start with Gary.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay,
Turn
thank you.
on your video, please.
I can't, my video is not working. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Okay, I'm excited to ask this question. So, a couple of things that Michael has said that really moved me or touched me specifically was one about how as we become activated, we automatically activate others. And there was even a time where there was a spirit present that gave a specific invitation for us to participate in the spiritual work on the planet. And it was basically, from the way I interpreted it, was like just being willing to do that, which when I heard that, I realized that that's really what I wanted, that I want to be of spiritual assistance with the planet, that I realized that by myself, I don't know how much I can influence, but as a larger spiritual work that's being done, I wanted to be part of that. And it got me to thinking, like with spiritual exercises, that the intention seeming to be with spiritual exercises is that as we do them, we become more aware of what's going on. And I assume that as we become more into God's remembrance, that we become more aware of the spiritual part that we're playing in terms of being a part of that spiritual action of sending light to the planet and uplifting the planet. I had always kind of thought like, oh, I wouldn't want to do certain things, but I would want to do certain things. And when I kind of started thinking about that, I realized I almost didn't even really care what my role was. I kind of assumed that God will use me and use us based on our abilities, our natural abilities and talents and where we're supposed to be. And so I kind of wanted to just ask more about that and also ask like, is there a way that you can that can be seen? Like the spiritual work that's going on the planet, can that be viewed? Like I know you've talked, Alicia, about the Tuan. Is there a like an objective way that you can see that, and how does it work? Is it like a anyway? That's my question. What I wanted to ask about.
Unless you have something I can answer the question about the Tuan. Okay. I'm just going to put this on gallery so we can see everyone. Yes, we can. To answer very specifically your question about the Tuan, we can absolutely see the Tuan. For those of you who don't know, the Tuan is a beautiful golden crested orb deep in the core of the earth. And the Tuan, the size of the Tuan reflects the Christing of the planet. Our planet is endeavoring to be Christed, which means more souls, more and more souls choose to work out their karma under grace rather than law. So they choose loving against all that is within and without pressing upon us to choose less than loving. As we choose loving and choose loving and choose loving against all odds and against all momentum of this planet, we then incur more instances, more consistency of living in grace, living in the flow of light, where life becomes more magical, more mystical. And so the Tuan, this golden orb, the genesis of both of us talking about Tuan was I had been seeing it for years and didn't tell anyone about it because I'll tend to look at things for a while before I share. Michael had been seeing it for years, also didn't tell anyone about it, including me. And then I saw it and had this very strong experience with it and shared with him about it. And he said, oh, I've been seeing the same thing. And we both described it, having not talked about it before. And then I started sharing about it at the time I was doing classes. I started sharing about it in my classes, and people had very powerful experiences with it. So everyone now, if you would just please drop a grounding cord is the most simple way to get to it. So that might look like sequoia tree roots going deep into the core of the earth. Hermes Trismegistus said, as above, so below. So the Christ, which is in the high heavens, is through us and also in the core of the earth. So this is specifically to promulgate the Christing of the planet. So just touch the fingertips of your awareness deep into the earth. Yes, you can. Yes, you are. Assume God consciousness. So touch into this golden Christed orb in the middle of our planet, deep in the molten core. So the core of the planet is actually the crown chakra of the planet. So touch into that crown chakra of the planet. And as you do, you touch into all other magical beings, those who work in the light, as well as the Christ, as well as the Christine that was a starter, if you will, for our planet coming from Venus. Because Venus was Christed before us, and many souls came from that action into this one. So touch into that, into the core of the earth, and you can see with your higher sight, with your spiritual sight, the size of the Tuan. Trust yourself. And you can participate in the Christing of the planet in every instant. Every time, and I'm going to paraphrase our beautiful Ron Holnick, every time one soul rises in awareness, the whole of humanity moves forward. So every time you move ever more into Christing, the whole Christing of the planet moves forward. That is the power of one. You see, because there are no others. To paraphrase, I believe it was Maharishi, when asked how he got along with others. Ramana Maharshi, when asked how he got along with others, said, there are no others. So this is the power of one. Let yourself be that one right this instant. And of one accord, we are increasing the Christing of the planet. That affirmation you heard in the meditation at the beginning, repeat that now. And touch that into the Tuan. And now rise up at the speed of light. You're not taking the energy from the earth. You're just letting it stabilize you as you rise up at the speed of light into the highest realms of light, into the Christ in the highest realms. Drop your reference points well beyond soul now. Drop those reference points too. Undifferentiated consciousness of Christ you are. And touch into that Christing and realize there's no difference. And that is one way you can observe the good works that you and that many do.
Well, it seems like everybody's in a beautiful place. I guess everybody's always in a beautiful place, but I think maybe there's more knowing of the beautiful place in people right now, which is great. I think, Gary, you were asking very much about this idea of that as you come into higher consciousness, there would automatically be an overflow from that, a realization in you as into something that could have a positive effect on others. And I would
Yes.
say that's really true. Now, in terms of doing more with it, the willingness to do gives the ability to do. That's a old quote from John Roger, which I think is really, really valuable for us. But I'm going to say this next thing a little differently, because this is when we're talking about really when you come into the true remembrance. And I'm going to say it like this: the willingness to be undone brings forward the ability to be used in the undoing of others.
Mm.
And going to the Ramana Maharshi quote that Alicia just did, well, if there are no others, then really remembrance, really coming awake, is getting past the illusion of otherness, past the illusions of differentiation, past the illusions of and distortions of time and space. It was interesting because when we were doing the meditation that we were just doing, we're working within the reality of time and space and the illusions in time and space, referencing something from beyond time and space that's having a dynamic effect into the condition of time and space. When we're talking about the Tuan or the Christing of the planet, or the Christing action coming from another world and then getting initiated into this world. Even when there's a referencing to the planet having its own version of chakras, which is really just saying there's dimensions of consciousness at play in the form and structure of the earth itself. And yet, are they really within that form, or do they just exist in a way that we would sense them and see them and define them and relate to them as within? See, it's strange if my body is really ultimately an illusion, and I'm consciousness of love using this form to have an interface with God's creation, and then to learn and grow in the process of that, and to give that learning and growth back into God. What an extraordinary thing. But then, if that were true for this individual, what about this individuation of the planet? Ultimately, that too is going to be found to have an illusionary quality to it. But for the purpose of our engagement with it as individuals, it's very tangible. But from the spirit, from the higher octaves of God, it is as untangible as this body or your body. So it's paradoxical that it has a reality because it's related to and dealt with as something that appears to have a permanence to it. But from spirit, it's recognized as something without permanence. And therefore, without permanence, it has the appearance and offers the process and the experience of change. Now, that's not a bad thing. That's a wonderful thing. That's kind of what we were seeking in coming into all this. There comes to every consciousness eventually this falling back into the truth of its oneness with that which is eternal and beyond the changing and the adapting and the shifting of this physical reality or even any of the psychic realities. So there is that in us as an individual that would want to be able to do more as an individual. And that's a beautiful, nice thing to do. And the reward for that in this world is often the world will reject you, but sometimes the world will reward you. But either way, you'll feel rewarded inside because you'll feel like your personal expression is more in alignment and more coherent with this higher purpose you sense. And it's in a deeper way, you know. But beyond you doing it, I invite you to let the Lord do it through you, as Jesus described about himself. Let that is eternal, that which is infinite, that which is always only loving, move through yourself as you have the willingness to be undone, that the undoing might be done in and through your availability to that process. Thank you for the question. We love you. Bless you.
God bless you guys. Thank you.
Who hasn't shared before? I don't know because okay. Okay, the next one is Michelle.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you. It's such a blessing, especially this time of year, to be here. And thank you again for these fabulous sessions. I loved the sharing, etc. at the beginning. And what came forward for me was this question, Red. I remembered JR and him talking about when Michelangelo was carving David and he was sculpting David, and he was taking away everything that wasn't David. And it seemed to be a bit tied up in, I don't remember you guys talking about discipleship. And with the Christ consciousness energy really present for me at the moment, I was wondering if you could please, especially with angels and remembrance, etc., what is your understanding of discipleship, and especially this time of year when we move more into the Christ consciousness in a more conscious way? Thank you.
Well, we have a disciple here. Maybe we want to hear from him.
I think we're all here disciples in the way we're disciples. I look at Jesus came and said, "Come follow me." And those that did, see, if you take the word disciple, like it's a line of discipline, line of discipline. So discipline we can think of as something we do with the Christ. I think it's about following the truth in your heart that gets activated by the Spirit, the living Spirit that calls forth to that consciousness that is ready to be receptive to that and ready to be, in a sense, reborn. You know, the whole idea of being born again is, again, I would understand it more of the reverse of that. It's almost like being unborn, freeing yourself from the limitations and the fallacious nature of the form that we carry with body. Fallacious means because we have a story about it, we have a drama about it. And there will come a time for every consciousness when the story will fall away and the illusionary nature of what we've been pretending to be so will be so apparent. We'll just know and go, oh, and we'll know reality to be what reality is. And we'll recognize that we were in a very distorted, maybe unnecessarily difficult drama in the body. And yet we also see the greater purpose in doing it and why God allows this to take place and why God set this up to take place as a learning experience for itself and for all the aspects of itself that were extended into creation. Christ Jesus called forward, first and foremost, those souls that had received the Christing prior to his coming into the world physically. Could that have been earlier on the earth? Yes, there were masters that carried elements of that Christ consciousness, not necessarily the completeness and the fullness that showed up with him. Because the Christ office was was there, available. See, when we say on the planet, it's kind of an illusion, but available to the planet, except it was activated in a lesser way. There were masters, Melchizedek, Enoch, etc., that activated in a very powerful way. But none as complete as at the time of Jesus. And that had a lot to do with the timelines of spirit and the purpose that he was being used to fulfill, which was the making available of this Christ potential, this Christ process, this doing our karma under grace rather than law. And so, but then there's been references to before that there were many souls that were agreed to come over from, see, we make it sound like they got on a spaceship and traveled over here, or they flew over here with angel wings. But the reality is, it wasn't a decision made in a spatial experience. It was a decision made in consciousness, in levels of consciousness that were connected to the planet Venus. And so there was an agreement to do this, and there were many souls that answered the call. In the traditional ideas, there were 144,000 they came across. And they came across quite a long time ago. It wasn't just like 2,000 years ago. And they came into the frequency of the planet and into the incarnation cycles here. Now, a lot of them didn't come into the incarnation cycles right away. They came and they were acting as sort of like overseers and guides and trying to support the action. But of course, they wanted to support more pretty soon. Well, I can do more if I get closer, and I get closer pretty soon. They were in it because you get too close, it's hard not to get into it. And so this was a process that was like carrying the way. And so when that message of come follow me came forward, it was to all mankind, but it was most especially for those that had already, in a sense, known the truth of it and were, in a sense, as it says in the book of Revelations, and the Lamb shall know his own, and they shall have his name written upon their foreheads. And that was a reference to this. Is those who carried this mark. To me, I mean the mark of the Lamb, sure, but that's the Christ. And so there were many in that part of the world when Jesus walked who had that and been part of that. And so the receptivity there was dramatic for those people often. Not always, but often. Because see, for them it was truly a remembrance. Oh, right. I've had something in me for so long, feeling incomplete, like I was missing out on something that was meant to be. And suddenly I knew what it was, and I knew it was connected to this person. I couldn't tell you why. I just knew something me couldn't resist. Not that my ego didn't try, couldn't resist to be part of what that was. And there was a lot that went with being part of what that was, a lot of hardship, a lot of giving things up, a lot of unpopularity amongst the greater populace. And that unpopularity has continued down through centuries. Now, there are versions of Christianity that have sprung up since Jesus physically walked the earth, that follow and express elements of his message. And within those, there can be an embracing of you if you follow Christ's message as they determine Christ's message to be. And that's not a bad thing that they're there, because it's a step in the right direction. But for those who really called and were called by the Spirit to come and choose into this world in the incarnation cycle here, then the time is now. Come conscious of this truth. To come conscious of the treasure, pearl of great price, that was buried in the field of your unconsciousness for a very long time, until such time it could be unearthed and brought forward. And celebrated and shared. So I think that's a interesting and accurate, though partial, way of expressing and talking about discipleship.
Thank you. I really loved that, and loved it became even clearer for me around the lessons and the learnings were like the chipping away at Michelangelo, and that beautiful reference that JR made many years ago to it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas. Do you want to just go down the line? Kate?
Hi, you guys. Thank you so much. Today's my birthday, and
Oh, happy birthday.
thank you. And I've had a day of such phenomenal loving all day long. And I was wanting to come on because I wanted to, I thought, what can I ask for? And what I want to ask is for I love the intercessory prayer process, and I've been working with that for some months now with Samane in France. And I know not everybody has the opportunity to go on Zoom or whatever to join a group. So I'd like to just ask that if it comes up into your heart anytime, any of you, that you just use that next breath, the next 25 breaths, whatever it is, to just place the light into the intercessory field so that spirit knows exactly what to do. That's what I would like to ask for during this Christed time. And then I'd like to introduce you to my new friend. Last year, when I was so very sick, I had a cat I absolutely adored, and I had to give her away. Uh, um, it was just the best thing and for her, and she's with someone who loves her, and even though I miss her very much, I can't take care of an animal at this time. So the other day, about a week ago, I was in Target and I saw this little critter, and it's one of those weighted, um, like a weighted blanket. And I have to tell you, she's a Pegasus. She's got wings. She's so soft, and I am sleeping so much better. It's just been a phenomenal thing to have her up against my back or to clutch her to my belly. And I don't usually, I don't have very many animals like this, but I asked if she had a name, and her name was Hildegard. And I went, Hildegard, oh my goodness. So I call her Hildy. And then today I was listening to this beautiful, I'm sorry, I shake, this beautiful chanting
Yes. Yes.
that I just can't tell you how fabulous it is. So I just wanted to say there's many ways to receive what we need. And my nervous system is really grateful for this. And I just wanted to share that and how much I love you. You, both of you are just like angels in my life. And there's so much richness with all of us coming together. I feel so blessed. So thank you, thank you, thank you. If there,
Very beautiful. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if there's anything that will be of lifting for any of us, it could be all of us, it could be one of us, I don't care. Please bring that forward.
I just want to ask if I can share something. 1 second. Lee, if you can, I'm just going to mute myself. Okay. Thank you for our, we have a little conference. So first I want to answer your first birthday request, which is let's join in a moment of intercessory prayer. So for those of you unfamiliar with it, intercessory prayer is really allowing your consciousness to be utilized as a conduit for spirit. We are truly God's eyes, ears, bodies, consciousnesses. And so it's allowing that which is us, that which we call our individuation, our souls, to be utilized by spirit. So in this moment, each one present and each one to watch the archives and all those invisible with us, those light workers that don't happen to have human bodies. Perhaps they're angels or fairies or extraterrestrials, those positive light workers. Let's just take a moment and just add the light of the Holy Spirit that comes through us into the congregate, into the collective light, that we might be conduits of divine intention, that we might be workers of light, that we might be invisible, that spirit would be visible and increase on our planet, going now to each one in need, to each one who feels alone, to each one giving up hope, that our hope would be added unto them, that they would know they were born the beloved. Where there is dis-ease, let there be the health of loving who they are and who we are as one in love. Where there is discord, let there be peace, the peace that flows within us, the wisdom that comes from knowing all is simply God experiencing itself through us. Where there is upset, let there be calm. And let us know that we are ministers of love, light, and sound. That the infinite force of good moves through us now, adding to the eternal source of God experiencing itself through us. It knows exactly where to go, this light, this intention, our shared intention. May it be so. May all beings come together as one in the name of love, which is God. And so be it. Erush Bishan. Always for the highest good. Thank you for participating in that, everyone. And the Pegasus is a spiritual protection. More effectively said, or more accurately said, called the Pegasus. And I'm going to hand the mic to Michael in just a moment, but it is a spiritual protection that uproots negativity from the planet and takes it from the planet. Very, very, very powerful spiritual protection, only to be utilized and called upon in alignment with the highest good. And Michael, and again, I'll hand the mic to him in just a moment, but he first saw this when John Roger, our teacher, fell down a flight of stairs and lost his eye. No, that's not when you saw it. That's when you told me about it.
No, it's good. Go ahead. Our bicycle wasn't at that time.
Oh, well, that's when he told me about it. And in fact, John Roger put a picture of Pegasus on the stairs after he fell down the stairs. So it is you can invoke the Pegasus, see it all around you, and see it going into the earth and uprooting the negativity, of course, for the highest good. And again, it's a very powerful and rare spiritual protection, probably not to be shared necessarily, unless you really go inside and ask spirit. But if you really go inside and ask spirit and you're here to share it, then share it. We are at a pivotal time on our planet. And we are in need of all the forces of light, the light workers, seen and unseen. And so intercessory prayer is very, very powerful. And to me is a Christed way of serving. For it is saying, Lord, utilize me. Utilize that which I've called me until now, that I might be added unto the light of the planet. It's, to me, the highest service. It's what the Christ embodied, what Jesus embodied when he walked the earth. May we all be that walking prayer in the midst and motion of life, not just when we stop and go into the lotus, but may we go into the lotus in the midst of all we do and all we are, that we might be an intercessory prayer.
Well, I think you shared it pretty well. So, my introduction to the Pegasus was I've talked about this a few times, not in a lot of detail. I don't know if I've mentioned the Pegasus before, but maybe. Anyway, one night I got a call from John Rogers' staff. And of course, he was doing very poorly. And I was thinking, okay, well, do I need to? It sounded like he was doing really poorly. So do I need to go over to his house to help him out? And they said, no, we're coming to you. So, oh, okay. So they came, and him and I don't know how many of them there were, 3 or 4 other guys, something like that. And anyway, we started working, and he was in a really bad way, probably as bad as I've ever seen him. Meaning just the pain he was in. And we were working and doing things, and it was helping a little bit, but the pain just kept going on. Finally, I was at that finally I was like, well, Lord, this must be something I've never seen, because what was it in the spirit? They said, well, you haven't seen this before, but you'll know what it is. He said, it's a demon, except it's a demon coming out of the earth. And this is a demon that's lived in the frequency of the earth for maybe millions of years, long time. And when I sensed it, I said, oh my God, this is massive. It was just massive. So what could we do? And the Spirit just said, well, there'll be help for you. So I opened to it, and that's when I found Pegasus came. And if you look at the story in the mythology, you think of the one I grew up watching was Perseus, I think was the story. And he has to fight the Kraken. The Kraken's like this giant monster that comes out of the ocean. This can destroy the civilization or destroy the city. And Perseus, has his aid, which is Pegasus. And he jumps on the winged horse, Pegasus, and flies in. And with the use of the Pegasus, he's able to slay the monster. So I think that's a reference in the mythology to a truth, that there are higher powers of the spirit that can come available to us when there's a particular need. And with this, it was a particular need. And so, with Pegasus, but also invoking all the great archangels and everything we knew, and calling on the light of those present in the room with us, reaching through the spirit with a assistance to Pegasus was able to pull this demon free out of the earth and out of the effect of him, because John Roger had been tied into this action. And he went from, if 10, we have to hospitalize him and put him on morphine, he was a 9.99. He just went, he was better like that. And by then it was I don't know what it was in the morning, 4 or 5, 6 in the morning. And he said, "Hey, let's go." It was light, and they were like, "Let's go to what's on the way? Let's go get breakfast." That was them, and they took off. And it was interesting. Well, by then my kids would get up at 7-ish usually. So okay, well, this is one of those nights I'm not going to sleep, and I had a lot of those over the years, and so doing stuff. And so I just doing around the house, and a little bit later, I'd kind of turned on the TV while I was doing stuff, and there was breaking news: a massive earthquake has hit Indonesia. And oh, I forgot the thing to do. One of the keys they gave me to be able to free him from the effect of this demon. And I said, well, "What can I call it?" Because usually by naming a thing, you have power. And I was, and they said, "Call it Krakatoa." Oh, so I called it Krakatoa, and Pegasus and that energy was able to extricate, pull it out. And anyone on the TV said a massive earthquake has hit in Indonesia. This 9.1 earthquake or whatever. And it's hit in the ocean. The nearest landmass is the island of Krakatoa. So that was a use of the Pegasus.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So the only other time I remember needing to use it was in Morocco, where there was a huge demonic form that was cleared out. When we were people that were on that trip would remember we were at a restaurant and by the ocean, and it was also used at that point to again free this frequency out of the earth, this negative frequency, to open up the karma and open up the freeing of the karma of that part of the world. So it's kind of cute that you have a Pegasus with you.
With beautiful wings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Just, it's interesting. I always wonder why Michael called it Pegasus instead of Pegasus. And I was just meandering in the spirit. And I heard it's actually the angelic, high archangelic name. I'm not going to say it, but it's closer to Pegasus than Pegasus. It brings in an energy of the silent ones. Remember, the silent ones only get involved if there's something major going on the planet. So a massive earthquake would be in that category. John Roger falling down the stairs and losing an eye would be in that category. And I remember that picture of the Pegasus that they put on the stairs, and it had pink in it. It had flowers around it. And so yes, very, very powerful spiritual protection. So feel free to utilize, but with great discernment, and share with great discernment. But if you get that call to share it, do share it. And the other thing I would say is, are you familiar with the term proprioception?
Please remind me.
Sure. So our proprioceptive system in our body is our kinesthetic, our feeling of security. So those weighted, often they make them animals for kids on the spectrum. It gives us a great sense of security. What it does is it grounds us. In my parlance, in our parlance of speaking it more spiritually, speaking neurologically, what it does is it calms the body. It calms our neurology by giving us this input, this sensory input. you know, and you can't tell obviously because we're on Zoom, but I'm pushing down on my body. It would be pushing down. It gives us this sensory input, which immediately calms our neurology. So I'm sure, love, you have had a lot of stress from being sick, and it's very calming for your neurology, which your cat used to do. And
Oh
so,
my God, what an angel. Sophia, uh, I can't even say her whole name, but it was just an angel cat for sure. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So this is your Sophia.
Yeah.
And it's perfect that no, wait, she's waited because that's the proprioception. So if you find that if you're feeling shaky or insecure, these weighted, they're easy to find. They used to be, we used to get them for our eldest son who would have challenges in that area because he was not that grounded. He's much more grounded now, but they're easy to find now. You can get them, like you said, in Target, you know, these weighted sometimes to make them as snakes and you like wear them around the house, that kind of thing. It just calms you. Like it's almost like a massage where it just calms your nervous system and it grounds you. The Tuan is fabulous for that. So grounding, you know, dropping grounding cords deep into the earth, it gives us that stability, which ironically helps us go even higher in the spirit because now our basic self is secure and goes, oh, okay, you can go out there and hang out in the upper realms. I'm fine. Right. But if we're not feeling grounded, sometimes our basic keeps pulling us back with, you got to do the to-do list. And what about the thing? And oh my God, what about the fires and the earthquakes and the politics? And right. When we ground, that part's secure. And it goes, okay, go ahead.
And what's very interesting is that grounding has not been easy for me through my whole pelvis ever since I had cancer many years ago. And I've been working on it and working on it. I just started wearing yesterday grounding shoes from grounding.com. I think that's what it's called. I can already feel like I think I need to be careful not to overdo it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Might it be earthing.com?
Earthing.com. That's
yeah,
right.
we use the earthing. This
I've
is
got
not an
their-
advertisement.
Yeah.
We use the earthing sheets and the pillows.
Oh, yeah.
And in fact, my feet right now are on a grounding
Pad. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
I've
a
got
grounding pad and it goes into a grounding cord. And you know, you might think it's funny that I would be grounding while I'm doing this very airy fairy seminar, but that's precisely why.
exactly.
Because it comforts that the smaller self.
Yeah.
So we can go out there and do all this weird stuff.
Yeah.
There's lots of other places besides just earthing.com. That's just the one that I'm familiar with.
And that's the one that I chose to support. And I'm just so grateful that I've been waiting and waiting to buy these shoes. And now I have them.
Exactly. And a less expensive hack for that also is just to wear leather shoes, not to wear rubber or plastic.
Exactly. Moccasins are a real good example of that. Yeah.
Because you feel it. And Michael wears those really weird toe shoes because his feet are on the earth.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. I love you guys so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. What a blessing.
We love you. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy Merry Christmas.
You too.
Michael and Alicia, please.
We done already?
No, this is our 2-hour gathering. Please, a little interlude. First, I hope everybody's enjoying the purple radiant cross that keeps coming out of the microphone as Michael and Alicia are sharing. I'm finding that a lovely addition and looking forward to seeing how the recording will capture that. I would like to ask you, Alicia, as we look just between you and Michael, there on the top shelf, your angelic ancestry. I know the time is accelerating towards its release. And please, especially as you can invite us to be part of supporting this evolving bestseller for the highest good and your opportunity to ramp up even more your reach and your ministry, please share with us.
Oh, thank you very much. And I'll just take a second here, a moment here. So the book is now for sale. This has been quite a journey. I want to say 30 years ago, John Roger told me to write. Took me a little while to do it. And, I think I needed to live all those 30 years and to really understand the angelic as I do now. So the book is now for pre-sale on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, etc. Your angelic ancestry, discover your archangelic name, heritage, and higher purpose. I think Lee's going to drop it in the chat. So pre-sales are really, really important for authors now. All the onus is on me to sell the books, not the publisher. It's a new day in publishing. So if you are called to order it, I would be immensely grateful. So it's easy to find Your Angelic Ancestry on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, etc. It's really about, of course, as so many of you know, it's about knowing and embodying the archangelic within us. It's not about going outside. It's about reclaiming our archangelic heritage, because the angelic predated this level, the human level, by millennia. And so it's not about going back in time. It's about going beyond time and space, because angels live in eternity and infinity. So it's really, how do we utilize the high archangelic? Because in the book, I guide you to work only with the very highest great archangels, and to claim and to embody your high archangelic self and bring it forward into this time, so that it might expedite your divine remembrance, your God remembrance, because angels never forget God. They're one with the will of God and one in the remembrance. So thank you. And I really appreciate it. And that's really, to me, this is born with each of you through the years with me. So it's released with Penguin Random House, with Hay House. So thank you, and I love you.
That was nice. Wasn't expecting that. Thank you, Lee. I've read the book. I think it's really, really good and very, very filled with, let's say, spiritual insight and keys that I think everybody could benefit from. So, okay. Who's next?
Ian Mills. I thought Ian had somebody with him, but maybe it was like the twin that he ate or something. You're muted, my friend. There we are.
Yeah, that was Bob Zapp. He's just had to check out.
Okay.
Nice to be with you and to be with everyone. My sharing or question is in relationship to this process of remembrance and the kind of shift or transition in awareness and identification from kind of Ian to this greater form. And yeah, it's something that I can kind of sense or feel, or it's kind of like it's kind of like the curtains behind me are being pulled across, and there's I mean, I'm obviously talking to you from, like a conscious experience, but there's a lot of reference points in Ian's life, and there's a lot of things that make up Ian. But this greater form it's formless. Like there's kind of no reference points, and my intention is to surrender to this greater form and awareness. But at the same time, there's I don't know whether it's a fear or yeah. Anyway, I guess the question or the assistance, because I do see it as a universal process of this remembrance, is what kind of guidance that we can have for that transition, and that's surrendering to that transition from like me to me being this the greater me, greater us.
It's interesting because I can, how to say this. I'm aware of that consciousness moving in you and you fighting it even as we're talking. It's starting to really move in you, and you, for whatever reason, probably for propriety, for wanting to hold it all together. And that one that finds a reason to maintain the storyline of appropriateness, the storyline of belonging. This is how things are done. This is how things are supposed to be done. The world is part of what obstructs the process. First of all, you're still framing it as something that you would do. Remember Jesus' quote where he said, "Of myself, I can do nothing." That means this personage of his can't do this. So what we're really talking about is surrendering to this thing that is always awake and always aware and always aware of God, but more than that, always aware as God. It's just very strong inside you. You're getting a lot of pushback inside of you. It's I don't know if I've talked to you about this, but in your karma, you've kind of done what I call been on the pendulum of doing lives where you're very, very wild and free and exploring and sensual and very libertarian, but just very into freedom. And then other lives where you're very disciplined and very restricted and very trying to find the right way and do the right way. And when I say somebody's on the pendulum, it's like they go from one life, they're more over this wild, free, adventurous, sensuous, maybe hedonistic. Pendulum swings and they're monastic and they're restricted and they're holding back. And your existence has been, you've had a lot of these lives, one or the other. And what's happening for you in this lifetime is the pendulum's kind of coming to balance more and more. And so you simultaneously have this very free, adventurous, wanting to drink the cup of life in its deepest, richest, most appreciative way. And this other part that sees and believes there are keys of control and discipline and a requirement to somewhat suppress, confine those other impulses inside of you. And I'm here to tell you that none of that has anything to do with remembrance. Those are things we do on the way of trying to get free of the suffering that we start to engage in our consciousness and in our bodies, because our bodies feel the effect of it as we start to become more and more um, aware of the incompleteness of our existence, that there's a suffering going on inside of us, that there's something missing. It was like the movie The Matrix, the hero Neo, who was, the one. But it was what was it? He was suffering because he knew there was something wrong. Well, that happens to our consciousness when that higher guidance, we could call it that word made flesh, or the word of God, comes and activates the stirring of remembrance. And that's such a great gift to us, but we first have it. Parts of us that have been doing the game, either the game of finding the most fulfilling life out here, or retreating from this world so I can find the most fulfilling life inside, and sort of been flip flopping between those. And most souls are going to do some version of this, as I've looked at so many people's karma through really half a century almost. This truth of the remembrance is catalyzed. We might call it that sound current, but it's this impulse that touches us and it activates in us a longing, a hunger, and there'll be a struggle within us from that is attached to the familiarity of the world, and that calling as it moves in us. And so it may take us a number of lifetimes where we'll go through this process. And at first, we'll look around in the world for the answer because that's what we're conditioned to do through so many lifetimes in physicality. Then we'll go, okay, it's not in the world. Okay, it must be, I'll go inside to get away from the world. And there's a kind of progression that happens there. And we picture it and tell ourselves a story that we are evolving to it. What's really happening is we're trying different options and we're evolving to the truth that none of the things we're doing works. Eventually, we get to that point of enough remembrance, and then the grace of God's extended, and then a force within reality in all dimensions of beyond time and space and through time and space that is always in the remembrance of itself as God, and itself as one with God, and itself holding the key to the remembrance of God for all of God's reality. That's got different names through the long history of mankind. Currently, we're referencing more because there's certain, it will use anchor points to help make itself more accessible to humankind. So we're calling it the traveler consciousness, or mystical traveler consciousness. But it is this force that is ever, in a sense, in that remembrance, and in a sense, offering the opportunity of remembrance. And so then we get to that, and then this process intensifies for us. It intensifies in that we start to have more remembrance. But the thing is, once we start to have more remembrance, when we start to get pulled back into the forgetfulness that this world invites or insists upon, the suffering in us gets even stronger. Because the more we have the remembrance, the more intolerable it is to live in this limited, illusory state. And so you and many of the people that are watching tonight or listening tonight or are confronting this challenge, this dilemma. Now, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. The blessings already are. We hear these messages, which is really telling us that the source of remembrance is always at hand, which means in a strange way, we already exist in that remembrance. We just don't remember that we remember. That is that force of remembrance is right there, calling. And what happens is it calls and obstruction comes towards the consciousness from out of the unconscious. And it's basically throwing up pictures or messages of paradigms that suggest this can only come about in a certain way. And it's through a certain process, through a certain teaching, through a certain framework. And the reality is there are frameworks and there are processes and then there are techniques and there are things that can support us to this because they, in a sense, they, let's say, in terms of this world, they're more in resonance with this force that is in the eternal remembrance. But in the very end, we even surrender those things. But all those things really are doing is they're helping us recognize that we need to let go of the self and let God be the truth that's known in our consciousness. This truth that is only here and only available.
In that process, there's a fear that I will just be obliterated, or that I will cease to exist. And
Yeah.
when I'm contemplating it just before, it reminded me of a time when I was probably maybe 6, and I had like a really high fever, and I was really sick, and I came down into the living room, and whenever I focused my attention on anything, everything would just obliterate, and it was incredibly scary to me. Like it scared me a lot, and I would have to try and do something else. And then when I would start relaxing, whether it was watching the television or doing something, and as soon as my focus or attention remained constant, the whole thing would kind of blow up again.
Well, that the out of the ego, but out of the deeper unconscious, there will be all these messages of why this will be the worst thing ever. But somewhere inside, something you knows this is not the worst thing. This is the best thing. Now, you were taught this in a interesting way, in a very deep esoteric way by Socrates. When you were on the planet, you were one of his students, and so he wasn't necessarily using mantras and stuff, but he had the consciousness, and he helped take you into that. You became terrified in your mind in that time because you experienced sort of that ceasing of the individual existence. But you were able to come back because he through his presence with you was able to stabilize you and help you to have it. And so you were in that lifetime having a form of great enlightenment. You were having more of the remembrance than was normally available at that time. but you came, in a way, you became over reliant upon him, as that it's like he was in the spirit world, he was standing there with you spiritually as Alicia used the term of a ground or an anchor point, allowing you to have the simultaneous experience of being nothing and something, simultaneously knowing both and being okay with it and being in. If he had stayed with you and stayed alive, you would have been able to ground and integrate it sufficiently that you could have walked around in that in a version of God conscious state. However, he was killed. He was forced to drink the hemlock. He died. And so the process was incomplete with you. And without him there and his capacity to work with you like that and do that, your consciousness, you still had this going on, but you didn't have the stabilization. And so you started to fall apart, started to lose your mind, started to freak out and go crazy. And so you shut down as to save yourself. And so I'm telling you that because while I'm talking to you, the fear from that time is let it go. And the traveler's got you, and we'll help you, and we'll be your anchor as you need it. He's with you right now, reminding you of that. Thank you. See, God is doing nobody and somebody all the time. He's doing both. So can we.
There is another assist. It's a misnomer to say another and assist. It's like a diamond has facets. So there's another facet of the diamond available, the diamond of God available to you. And it has to do with your archangelic ancestry. I've never met a high archangelic, which you are, and there are several on this call. That's one, and there's others. And even just archangelic, I've never met one who didn't struggle mightily to exist here. I myself struggle mightily to exist in not that we're in the body, but we have a body. Because we are so aware now, the veil has been rent, and we're so aware of the world's emerging. I'm pretty sure I shared this with you, Ian, when I cooperated, when JR validated for me in Morocco that the worlds were merging. And see, angels, archangels certainly don't exist and do exist. So this is the whole point of opening up now at this time. This wasn't available much prior to this time, but opening up now to our archangelic ancestry. It's not about that, because who cares? We've done that, right? It's about moving forward, hastening this divine remembrance that Michael so eloquently shared about. Because you see, angels are essence, they're ethereal, they don't have form, they don't have this, they don't exist, and yet they do. They don't exist, and yet they do. They're essence. They're formless, but knowable. They don't exist, and yet they do. So as we open to that heritage, and by the way, we've very likely, and certainly you, very likely had many, 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 many more lifetimes in the angelic than the human, because this is a latter-day experiment. That veil was opaque between the worlds, so that we didn't try to go back there to that place where our job description was to praise God, whom we never forgot. Right? Then we come here. What, we're in such forgetfulness. And it would be excruciating. We would try to take our lives. And many high archangelics do have, right? I've counseled many of them, very suicidal, because that veil is now open and now they're aware. But when you walk that very delicate balance of existing and not existing, whether it's angelic, human, God, human, etc., it's all the same, by the way. When you walk that very delicate balance, there's no suffering. But if you skew off just a bit, the suffering is immense, because you know the light just on the other side of that. Yet it's right there and you can touch it, but you can't. It's like that incredible, going back to Michelangelo, that incredible painting where he's almost touching the finger of God. And yet that space between, that's the suffering. So opening up even more, and you're pretty darn open to your angelic, even if you're not always conscious of it. I mean, it's easy to see it on you. The more you can open up to that, the more you can be in that divine remembrance, even while you walk sovereign in the free choice that is the heritage of humans. And so now you have a fully remembered angel, being freely choosing human to absolutely surrender God, and to have a fully realized God being flying over this earth, while they walk this earth in human form. That's the whole point of that book. It's not about angels. It's not about humans. It's about God. And so I'm going to let Archangel Michael speak to you for a moment, speak to all of you for a moment. This opportunity is venerable, ancient, and yet unborn. You are so visible, your light apparent, shining for miles and miles, and completely imperceptible. You walk and you fly. You exist in time and well beyond it. You live and you die, instant by instant by instant. The clock ticks, for you have run out of time. Now is all that is. And this is the moment exploding within you, saying, "Come forth, beloved, now." Don't tarry in forgetfulness and slumber any longer. Come forward, beloved, into all of who you are as born the beloved now. Don't slumber, don't tarry. We are in need of you as we bring this planet to the Christ. It shall be brought. It shall be brought in destruction or celebration. And you have a vote in that by your choices. Wake up, wake up, wake up. You feel your feet to the fire, for they are. And it is the fire of purification. You go 1 jot or inch out of alignment and you will suffer. Why? Because your soul knows you've run out of time. You run out of naps and winks and slumber. The time is now. We are in need of you. Come forward. And it can be easy and it can be difficult. The choice is yours. Open up. We see your silent struggles and we have compassion and we hold you close to our breasts. In the dark of the night, we hold you close and we rock you. And we also see your strength and your heritage. And we call you forward into that now. Winged, fleshen, it matters not. Soulful, that is who you are. Amen.
Thank you.
We love you.
Love you too.
Merry Christmas.
Merry everything.
To you.
Michael and Alicia, we are at 8:25. We started a bit late. There are two hands visible, and one of our participants is before those two appeared. Lily Colette chatted that she was unable to raise her hand but would like to. All of that for your consideration, please.
Up to you.
Well, we started a little late, so we can do one more. I don't know what to do. What would I know?
So there's also Lily.
Correct.
Of the three of Lee, you would know this. I have only been here whatever that was, a fourth of the time, fifth of the time. Are there any of the three that have not shared with Michael?
I've never seen Lily share. I have seen Ardith share, and I'm not sure about James John.
Okay. Shall we?
Let's do Lily.
Let's bring Lily on, and yeah, and do check your emails because we haven't gotten the green light from Spirit what to do next, but there'll be something. You're not going anywhere. It won't probably be what this is, but we don't know what it is. It might be. We don't know yet. We are receiving our direction. We just hasn't come down yet. Hi.
Hi, Lily.
Hi.
Oh no, now we can hear you
Can you hear me okay?
perfectly.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. Um, I'll just take one ear out. I missed the talk at the beginning, so my apologies for not, I will go back and listen to that. I just had such a calling. It's like 4 a.m. here in the UK, and I just had such a calling to come and join. I just got up and I'm just really enjoying the loving and this immersion. So thank you, and just all the sharings. I'm going to try and find a generic rather than a personal. Um, but I have to share my experiences, what I've been experiencing, and so long I've been wanting to share this with you. So I'm just trying to settle a bit. So I'm somewhat aware of past situations with myself, and I have spoken with Michael in sessions many times about this in the past. But I have been experiencing to a greater extent a feeling of being pulled. So I'm kind of going into bliss, and I'm with the Christ, and I'm having this joy and feeling on track, and then just a plummet. And something that's been coming up recently that I've been hearing is And I wondered if you could speak a little about the harrowing of the souls, just that, because I've been also getting
I don't think we heard that word, hallowing of the souls.
harrowing. So
Spell it for us.
when Christ went down after the resurrection and saved
Oh,
the souls,
got it. Okay.
um, that kind of I've been seeing for a while the stone rolling away, like Lazarus, like I was in the cave, and that kind of sensation, and the stone rolling away and that emerging. Um, but and I have such a huge calling to be with people. I'm being given ways to be in the world and to give into the community. And I'm feeling this amazing challenge that's been coming up to stop me. That's what it feels like, to stop me from doing that. And yet it's my joy. I want to do it. I feel it's my purpose. It's why I've come here to be with people and to share. And yet there's this pulling. And so I'm going from this sensation of being in the bliss and with the Christ, and then this feeling of just being so incredibly challenged. Um,
Can you still hear us, Lily? Oh, no, she's back.
uh, sorry. Um,
You're going in and out a bit. Can you just repeat the last sentence that you said?
oh, sorry. Yes, so Christ has been saying to me, "You'll know me by my love," because there's been so much going on with my other energy centers that it's just a point of I just have to keep going just from the heart. Even doing my SEs, it's like, just keeping with the heart. So I hope there's something generic that is useful, that I just really love some direction about how I can do what I'm being called to do. Um, for the highest good.
We could understand hells, the idea that during the 3 days in the tomb, that Jesus went into the hells and he freed all the souls that were caught there. I think the idea was that um, I've heard different things about the idea that Judas was, because of his suicide, went into hell, but because he was an initiate of the Christ, Christ came and got him out. When he also went down there to get him, he got everybody out. That's the idea. And I think to understand hells, we tend to think of them as places. I think a better understanding of them as states of consciousness, of states of suffering. And why would we be there? Sometimes we'll tie into them through being over responsible for somebody else who's tied into it, and we tying into it because we were a guardian or a teacher, or we had some association with that person, either where we felt responsible for them, or occasionally where we were responsive to them and we looked at them as a teacher or an elder or guardian. And so anyway, we would be more prone to go into resonance with what that person was dealing with. Now, most of the time, that kind of stuff will be in one of, if we just wanted to put numbers, I would say in the lower numbers of the hells. The first four hells is where most of the people, when they get into this, and it's suffering, but it's not that bad. But there are other hells which are much more difficult, and that souls can get in there and they can be there a long time. Now, to understand this, I think it's important to understand we're talking about the soul, we're talking about something that's pure consciousness. And so, even right now, while we're, in a sense, souls living and learning through these bodies, it's almost like saying to be a soul living and learning through this body, it'd be like it might take if one finger, if I'm the soul, it takes one finger to give life to this body. The rest of my soul energy could be somewhere else doing something else. A lot of it could be in other dimensions, in the astral, causal, mental, etheric levels, or other thing. It could be in parallel existence here, in other universes, other dimensions. As the souls get more evolved, they'll often take up more than one form to learn through at once. And most of us on this call have other lives going on in other dimensions, but we are rarely going to have any consciousness of that because it tends to destabilize the experience of both consciousnesses. It's destabilizing because it's a kind of insanity because you can't reference that into this and have it make sense. Because in another lifetime, you may be, your whole premise of existence there is totally different than your premise of existence here. Now, sometimes we will have lives and experiences where our self-assessment of ourself and self-assessments of what we deserve as a consequence or what we have done, what we have to ourselves or to others, or what we've undergone will be very, very difficult. And because we're creators here and God sets up an allowance of us to be creators, we may feel like, well, for what I've done, I should suffer some extraordinary difficult thing. Well, it's like the idea of sometimes people have that idea, well, for what I did, I should burn in hell forever. Well, the problem is there's no physical place where we can burn forever. Frankly, we start burning, we're dead pretty quick. But in psychologically, in the dynamics of the consciousness, we could, in a sense, give ourselves to that experience. Now, what'll happen sometimes is an aspect of that soul of consciousness will go into that because the consciousness is living and has determined that is where it should be based upon what it's participated in. And so the soul will then extend part of its essence into one of these places of perpetual suffering. Now, I'm sharing this in some detail, not just for you, but for everybody who will hear this, because this is not uncommon that part of our essence could be in one of these places. And when we have that, when people have this, they often have this underlying sense of wrongness about themselves or like a guilt about they really don't deserve the blessings and the love and the joy because somewhere inside they just see themselves as somebody who doesn't get to win, who is going to must lose because there's just something bad about them. And you have this. And so sometimes part of our essence or our soulic essence can be in one of these consciousness through multiple lives. Like we'll actually come into the body, die, and this will happen, and part of the soulic essence will be extended in this underlying state of perpetual suffering, maybe for a long, long time. In your case, it's about 800 years. So it gives you an idea. I've seen longer. That's it's pretty consequential. There's an unforgiveness inside of you. You were involved in the stoning and therefore the death of somebody who you came to look at and reverence as a saint. The time you got caught up in the fervor and the emotions and the negative messaging that was going on. And for you having to live with yourself with the idea that you struck against somebody who you saw as one of the holy ones of God. And with your ideas and definition of sainthood and spirituality and just the mindset that was yours in that time based on the religion that you were practicing and following, you just couldn't find a place where there could be forgiveness for this. You just never really got free of it. And so when you died in that mindset of being unforgivable, yeah. All right. Now I'm talking to Lily about this, but I'm this opportunity to be freed of any place in your conscience that has been caught up in one of these underlying dimensions of perpetual suffering is offered to everybody on this call and those who might listen to an archived version of it. Because the spirit that is the true spirit of salvation, which is ultimately that same spirit that offers divine remembrance, is offering up that opportunity to get forgiveness and accept forgiveness and let go of all the judgment and condemnation. Breathe.
Wow.
And as Jesus said to the lady, um, accused of adultery, where she would have been stoned, and just go and sin no more. Learn from it. Yeah.
You can also ask the Christ to bridge the gap between the forgiveness you now are aware of and what's possible. The Christ will complete the forgiveness for you.
Just breathe, let that in. Spirit's touching into you. It's gonna move. It's a lot. So just let go and let God. And this is a message for everybody on the call. Father, I receive. Dear Lord, we are so thankful for this opportunity to receive of your blessings, to receive of the sacred gift that the Holy Spirit brings in all aspects of all these souls that may have been entwined in this place of unforgiving are offered up through your grace to be returned into the truth of the eternal forgiveness of God. That is your message to us always. We all open to receive. And we see and know thy will is done. And we're thankful for this blessing. And we open to be givers of this blessing as you would allow, as would serve the greater good. For we do know that thy will is done.
Wow. No wonder they got me out of bed.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'll tell you
hallelujah.
I'll tell you a quick story about getting out of bed, and then we're going to finish and let Alicia close with a blessing for us. We were about to have our first child, and we were at a birthing center, and the midwife, the person we had been working with for
Who was a minister, an MSIA minister.
MSA ministry for like 8 months, wasn't there because it was in the middle of the night, and her shift wasn't supposed to come on till later in the day. And the person that was there wasn't calling her. They go, well, it's not time. I think hoping that Alicia would go into labor.
She wasn't intending to call her because she said, you get me tonight.
Yeah. And we were like, no.
This was before cell phones, and we did not have the home phone of our midwife.
Anyway, she's getting closer and closer to labor, and all of a sudden the door burst open, and our midwife comes in talking, and she started talking about
she said, she burst in, it's the middle of the night. She said, who is the angel with blue eyes? And I said, Archangel Michael. Why? And she said, he got me out of bed and said, get to the birthing center now.
So sometimes Spirit calls us forward. But the neat thing is when Spirit calls us forward, Spirit is also called forward. So go and share that joy. Go be the fountain of joy, celebration, remembrance. That call that touched you come through you and touch many.
Amen.
Amen.
Hallelujah.
Thank you. God bless you. Merry Christmas. I'm going to do the gallery. All right, beloveds, thank you for joining us. Myself for several of these gatherings, and Michael for 35 free gatherings from the heart. And we're going to close with a blessing, but first, we want to offer incredible heartfelt thanks to Lee and to Cindy, to another volunteer. And we don't have words to adequately thank you. So we just ask that everyone please send the light. These gatherings would not have happened if it were not for those two beautiful volunteers. So
It's true. We love you, and thank you for the support. And thank all of you for participating. This is a spiritual call for me, and I'm glad that there's some receptivity.
And we also want to thank Brett, who's responsible for the archives, been editing the videos and posting them so you can see the archive. So thank you very much for Brett.
That's Brett Tabin. We really want to thank Brett.
And thank you so much to each of you for showing up and contributing to the aggregate of the light on the planet. Please do check your email. We'll send out, once Spirit gives us our marching orders, we'll send out an email about, what will be next. We honestly don't know, or we tell you, we'll be finding out shortly before you do. So please do check your email. And also just want to thank Ron and Mary for your incredible support through the many years. We love you very much. Anything else you want to say before we send them off with a blessing? So we love all of you. I just want to scroll through the screens for just a moment. Thank you for the hearts. So beautiful. We love each of you and ask that you each be blessed. Get back to there we go. All right, so let's just gather together in one accord here in the upper room for a Christ Mass blessing as we just open now into spirit, absolutely surrendering, receiving of your grace. Father, Mother God, we now know ourselves to be born anew in this moment, born again in the remembrance of the Christ. That the stone is rolled away, that all that is dead within us, let it lay dead. For no longer are we in slumber. We rise into the new day, into the Christed light. We ask that anything, any negativity or karma that was released during this gathering, that was released during this year, be taken and transmuted as we open into the truth of who we are. That pure, divine, original innocence of the newborn babe of the Christ within us. That each moment we would be born into that pure light. If you've looked into the eyes of a baby, you know that God is choosing us back in that moment. And in each moment, we can rise again in the light of the freshness of the Christ and the new day into the original innocence. This divine remembrance, this divine awakening is surely cause for immense celebration. So listen and hear the angels praising the name of God, hearing your name amongst those beautiful resounding trumpets and harps, hearing your name called into the high heavens, your spiritual name. For indeed you were born the Christ, rise as the Christ. In this holy day season, may you know you were born the beloved, and so be it. Berush Bishan. We love you all. Until we meet again, be blessed.
Blessings for the holidays. Everybody stay safe. And we love you, and we will see you in the lands of remembrance.